Welcome to Understanding Project Management Discussions. I'm Dave Barrett, and my guest today is Behnam Rashidian. Our topic is quality management, and I think you'll see during our discussion that Behnam brings a unique perspective to how the important topic of quality management integrates into project management. So please welcome Behnam Rashidian. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Dave. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you
Great.
for inviting me.
Great. So our discussion today is around quality planning. And just as a little bit of background, in terms of, especially in the creation of my text, I talked to various other faculty and business professionals on certain topics, and Behnam has been my go-to guy on quality from day one. He has got a special sort of knack of being able to communicate what quality is all about. So anyways, this is our discussion today, which is around quality planning. So I guess my first question is what's your view of quality in general, and how do you see it relating to project management? I know that's a big question, but how about just sort of kick off there?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. What is quality? And if you look at different ways or different books or different literatures, you will find many different answers. But they all point towards almost the same thing, which is quality is customer satisfaction. So Crosby says quality is zero defect. And then we have Six Sigma, which says zero defect is like 3.4 defects per million, assuming that you have 1.5 sigma shift in your process. So there are various definitions of quality. And if we step back, we see that quality has stemmed from manufacturing operation. So we know manufacturing operation is different from project management. Right. So as such, we should be aware of the differences between these two type of work and adopt the quality to what we are doing. So if you look at zero defect talks about reducing defects to none, essentially. Why? Because we are in a manufacturing environment, because we are manufacturers and we want to do things right. Right. So there is a difference between doing things right and doing the right thing. Right. Right. So in project management, we want to do the things right. That's why we have all these controlling and monitoring processes. We do progress report. We talk to our customers. We talk to stakeholders. We want to do the things right. But at the same time, we want to do the right thing as well. So maybe even more than a manufacturing environment. So in a manufacturing environment, there are production lines. They are set up to create products, and those products are defined. The question whether the product is right for the market is something of the past in manufacturing operation. But in project management, that's not true entirely. You'll see that nowadays, we are talking about agile, okay? Right. And one important aspect of agile is changing the requirements of the stakeholder, constant changing, or even not changing, not totally definable requirements, the requirements that even the customers or the stakeholders cannot define. So we are constantly dealing with the question, what is the right thing to do, which is the project. So in that aspect, we have another very important question to deal with in project management. And we need to think about quality, knowing that there are more questions that we need to answer.
Right. So if I can just, there's a whole pile you just said there. So I just want to step through that for a moment. And, the first thing is just the idea of, okay, there's quality in operations, and there's quality in projects, and the differentiator between the two. And just one point about that I'm glad you raised that, because I've always or often found that, you know, when I'm going through a discussion of project management, and when we get to quality, suddenly we transfer into an operational manufacturing environment. Like it's like we're transported to traditional quality theory as it applies to management, and it's almost left to the reader to figure out the difference. And so I like the fact that you're identifying that, and your discussion of doing things right versus doing the right thing, I think is really interesting. And I agree with your points about during projects. It's that the second is very much important, of doing the right thing. That's an added challenge within project management. So very very agreed.
Great. So another aspects of I'm back on the question of, okay, we are thinking about quality and project management. And you're right. When we talk about quality, even in the context of project management, we talk about fishbone diagram, we talk about the scatter charts, we talk about various quality control tools. And suddenly, for somebody who is new to project management, they may find it difficult to know where they are. Are they in a manufacturing environment? Are we talking about the project? Are these the same thing? Sometimes it's the same thing, sometimes it's not. For example, in a company that there is an research and development department, and the research and development department creates new products, and that new product is eventually introduced into manufacturing. So and then there is mass production of that product. This is very typical, whether it is a low-tech or a high-tech company. So the question is, what is the quality that we are talking about? Is it the quality that we are talking about as it relates to manufacturing, or is it the quality that as it relates to project management, or is it both? You know, we talk about design for manufacturing. So design for manufacturing is an essential part that you need to consider when you have a project to create a new product. And this is something that is common between manufacturing and new product design. So I would say it's when it comes to the quality, a project management should be mindful of both of them.
Right.
So okay, go ahead.
Just to put it into project management terms, during the planning of the project, we come to quality. And I guess two parts to this. One is, I think a lot of times we sort of put scope and quality together in our minds, or they overlap and so on. So I guess first part of my question is how do you rationalize those two during planning? And then the second is, what is the purpose of quality planning, or what are you trying to do during a project, during this thing that we're calling quality planning? Like, how do you see those? So there's sort of two parts to that.
So let me see if I understood your question correctly. So one question is, where does quality start in project management? Where is the place of quality management in project management?
Right.
Okay. And I would say the first step of quality management is when we collect requirements. So the first step after a business case is approved and the project kicks off, we collect requirements. Part of those requirements is quality requirements, and that's an essential part of scope management. So when we create the scope, quality from the get-go should be in the scope. For example, we want to create a product for medical industry, right? So therefore, we need to make sure that we have allocated resources and people and time to get those certifications that are required for a medical device. So in essence, from the start of the project, quality is integrated into the project scope. Now, so that's one thing. That's the scope that
So that's
includes
sort of
aspects of the project.
right. So that's sort of the scope quality connection is right back to requirements. As you're defining when you're defining the scope of what you're going to do, you're also building in quality measures.
Exactly, exactly. And quality is a topic that is, all these project management aspects, they are intertwined, but quality starts from there. So what is the customer wants is the requirements, and quality is part of it, definitely.
Right.
So I forgot the second part of your question. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, no, I'm just I'm just going back to say, I was sort of
Oh,
stretching.
what do we do in quality planning, right?
Yes, quality plan.
Quality planning.
I wrote
Okay.
that down as a quality step.
So that's a very interesting question. I would change it to say, what should we do in quality planning? So currently, my experience is that most of the quality planning that we do is we say, what are the metrics that we need to have in place to measure quality? So essentially, we are pointing to quality control, or we are saying, okay, what are the trainings that we need, or what are the process guidance or policies that we need to follow, which is part of quality assurance. So we are thinking about how are we going to implement those quality aspects into our project. Okay, so again, we are addressing the question, how to do the things right. Okay, now there is another aspect in quality, as I said, is how do we make sure that we are doing the right thing? So, and we have project charter that shows us the big goal and the stuff, but we need to have this constant feedback from customers or from stakeholders. So as we can see, there are two topics that in quality management, they are not emphasized in the literature, but they are very important. One is stakeholder management, and one is communication.
Right.
So the two questions are, how can we constantly engage customers to make sure that we are doing the right thing? And the second one is, how do we report back to the stakeholders to make sure that we are representing our quality properly? Because quality is, as much as is a factual thing, is something that is perceived as well. So we have to present our quality in the proper manner. So these two parts of the quality planning is something that is not, you cannot find it. Everybody is somehow doing it. And as I said, if you think about agile, there are many companies that they don't need agile. The requirements are there, right? But they are finding benefits in agile. What are those benefits? Those are the two aspects that are heavily emphasized in agile project management, which is communication and stakeholder engagement.
Right. And I'm glad you raised that too, because, again, when I've talked about communication and stakeholder management separately, my point is always, this is required not as an end to itself, but it enables everything else. And so absolutely agreed that, in order to understand the needs of your customers or your stakeholders so that you can deliver quality, you need to manage your stakeholders, and you need to manage your communications as well. So these things, again, that's the integrative nature of project management. We can't or we shouldn't just look at quality in isolation from the rest of the system, for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Another question I have is one of the terms that always comes up right away when you talk about quality planning. And even if you go to the PMBOK definition of quality planning, they'll talk about standards. Of the purpose of quality planning is to, and I'm going to paraphrase this from PMBOK, to determine the quality standards to be used or employed during the project. So tell me about standards, and even how you use the word metrics as well, which is often associated with standards as well. What's your view on standards as it regards to quality planning?
Okay, so my view of standards is a standard is a set of guidance that is issued by an authority. So that's my view of. Obviously, you can define your own standards all the time for the projects, but if I go back to the same example of dealing in an industry, for example, you are making electronics, okay? So you have CE standard, you have UL standard. About medical industry, you have manufacturing 13485 standard. So as part of ISO 9000 standard. So there are various standards. So those standards define, and they are there to make sure that what you do falls within some guidelines.
Right.
So that, in terms of standards, that's my view of standards. Then
Right.
we have quality requirements. Okay, so quality requirements could be something that is driven from the standards, driven from your company quality policy, but they are more specific. For example, you create some marketing material, then you say this marketing material should have this number of words, as it is an example in your book, right? So yes, that could be that could be called a standard, but it's a requirement that you need to agree upon. And then you have tolerances, right? So tolerances tells you how, like, nothing is absolute, right? So tolerances tell you how much leeway you have to deviate from the set goal for the quality. Especially in quality control, we talk about these things. We say, for example, the length of this part should be 10 centimeter plus minus 1 millimeter, and the plus minus defines the tolerance, and the requirement is to be 10 centimeter.
Right. Yeah, no, so I like the differentiating, because standards I found over time standards, just the concept of them can be confusing to those news, to quality, as to, well, what is a standard? So just to sort of summarize that, so yeah, there are the known standards, electrical standards. I mean, I'm if you think of the building industry, there's building code, which are, I think a series of standards that need to be done for good reason. We don't want buildings to fall down and things like that. We don't want to electrocute ourselves when we're in our house. So those are, obvious, and I'll almost call them capital S standards, in a way. But then I like you then are differentiating or just, further clarifying that there are these other things that are more, and I'll just sort of test this out with you, are more voluntary, or more project defined or organizational defined standards, which I like the term quality requirements as well, which is, okay, these are agreed upon standards or quality requirements, such as, the number, if we're say like we're cutting a piece of wood, and it's supposed to be 18 centimeters in length, how close to 18 is acceptable, and that's where you brought tolerance into it as well. So we have these standards that we agree upon. If we were making, for example, a rough fence, just a kind of a fence out the backyard, well, you know what, if it's within a 16th of an inch, say, we're good. If we were creating fine furniture, a 16th of the inch is not good. That doesn't meet our standards anymore, or our quality requirements. It needs to be with 1/64th of an inch or whatever. I'm not a carpenter, so I'm just making this up. So anyways, yeah, that's how I view it as well, for sure.
Yeah, that's I think if you read the standards, I agree with you. If you read the standards, you cannot find something that you can put your hands on and tell your team, okay, you cannot throw the standard on the team and say, okay, comply with it. You have to further define it and modify it for your project. So it has a meaningful implication on your project.
Right. So I'm going to ask another question, which is it's a loaded question, but the reason why I do it, because I've found over the years a lot of people don't understand the difference between these two. A lot of there's a lot of, I'm sure, quality. If you're quality experts, of which I include you in that, Behnam, but there's a lot of lay people that need to work with quality and use terminology, and I'm not sure they completely distinguish between the two, but it's basically, to make a long story short here, the difference or the division between quality planning and quality assurance. I think that is a highly misunderstood term, or concepts, in general thought. Where do you see the line between those two, or at least where you are in quality assurance versus in quality planning?
Okay, so my understanding is that quality planning spans both quality control and quality assurance. So in quality planning, we are planning to, for example, how to test the final product, which is called verification, okay? Or in quality planning, we are thinking about what are the quality standards that we need to adhere to, and that's part of quality assurance, right? But quality assurance is essential. The simple way that I distinguish between quality assurance and quality control is that I say quality assurance makes sure that the defect is not produced in the first place. The quality control is like a filter. It sort or a sorting activity. It makes sure that the bad quality doesn't go out. So in quality planning, we are thinking about both of these. So we are both creating the metrics and defining the tolerances and how to measure quality. And also we are thinking about how can we make sure that the quality is inherited in the product. For example, how do we communicate with customer to get feedbacks on a continuous manner? So these are the how we can distinguish between quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control.
Right, right. I like what you just mentioned there, that uh, quality control, the back end, like is the filter. It is trying to detect errors that occurred, or defects that occurred. Quality assurance is trying to ensure you don't have errors, you don't have defects. It's trying to do, or its purpose is trying to develop processes and so on that will be preventative, as opposed to so like selecting them or finding them later. So in other words, the better, in theory, then the better you do, the more effective you are in quality assurance, the less you'll have to do in quality control.
Exactly, yes.
The less you'll find, I suppose.
Exactly, yes.
So
That's the goal. That's the goal, to have, I mean, the ultimate goal of quality control, I would say, is no quality control.
right.
So I can, from my past experience, whenever I was managing a new product, okay, in the beginning, we would plan for a lot of tests, especially for the pilot run, to gather not only for the quality control, just to gather the data, how the product is performing. But as we moved on into manufacturing, because controlling is costly, controlling and quality control is costly. So we would look at the data, and if a test or a quality control activity was not actually required because it would pass anyways, then we would remove it. So we would remove, and our goal for the final manufacturing test plan was to have as little as possible quality control, because the product was going to pass those quality tests anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when we talked about the goal of, the goal is to have like quality control is almost not needed. Like, whether you could ever do away with it is theoretical or not. But
Right.
it reminds me, and no, I'm dating myself, and so this probably is not in common awareness anymore. But there used to be an advertisement on television that for the Maytag company. And it was the Maytag repair person who had nothing to do. And he was always bored, and because the message was Maytag appliances, washing machines and so on, are so good you know, their quality assurance is so effective. The poor guy was going to be out of a job, you know, and so they
Exactly.
were demonstrating quality assurance and quality control, but they weren't calling it that. I don't know if that, you know, it's probably on YouTube. You can find, you know, search for Maytag repairman or repair person, and you'd find it. So, um, anyway, Behnam, this has been a great discussion. I think we've covered, you know, we've gone the sort of the whole quality. What is quality? Quality planning, assurance, and control. So we've sort of spanned it. You know, my view is, you know, quality is super important. I mean, you know, who amongst us buy a product and we're not worried about the quality of it? It's super important. So it's therefore important for, you know, project managers to have an understanding of quality, you know, at this sort of deeper level, you know, not just, you know, okay, that's something to do with fishbone diagrams or something. You've got to understand it, you know, in each of the aspects as you've described it. So, anyways, I thank you for your usual insight. I always enjoy our discussions, and I come away from it with a greater appreciation.